Hi，咁我係 Louise 梁鳳儀啦，咁我係一個香港人，咁我間中都會寫下詩，咁我會話其實我嘅詩作最有趣嘅地方係佢哋用 Congish，係啦，you know exactly 呢啲啦，so 鳩咯，係啦，咁講下點解用 Congish 寫詩啊，咁其實我會話將英文 claim 做自己嘅一樣嘢，其實係好 empowering，同埋都係同 local identity 有關，本土意識抬頭啦。特別係喺而家呢個世代，我哋需要廣東話多過需要更加多嘢啦。他朝嗰日如果我講唔到廣東話，大家利是，咁就唔知點算㗎啦嘛。即係啦，大家有睇過10年啦，咁唔知會唔會有一日我哋可能喺街度都要講普通話，咁我仲會唔會有用廣東話去創作或者溝埋英文去玩啲得意嘢嘅空間呢？同埋我會話我用 Congish 最主要係 entertain 自己，我會覺得如果我寫嘅嘢自己唔中意唔搞笑，咁我點解仲要寫出嚟？係啦，咁我今次喺 Canto Cutie 有一個 interview 啦，跟住有4首作品啦，咁分別係 Fishing in a Pawn Shop、People on Water、Sea Skin 同埋 Fish Skin。咁其實一聽都知道唔係同水有關，就係同魚有關。咁其實 circular 佢哋個common theme 咧都係同 departure 有關，因為我唔知點解啦，我覺得水同埋魚都係啲好流動嘅嘢，而呢一樣嘢令到我有種 uncertain 有種 insecurity，即係靚嘅，你望海望維港望魚游水係靚，但係你會忍唔住喺度諗，會唔會有一日條魚會游走咗，或者會唔會有一日啲水唔會再咁平靜，或者咁同一個 pattern，而係可能佢一個大浪冚埋嚟，或者佢會乾咗，會乾塘，係啊，好大變數。但係我會話佢嘅變數就係佢美麗嘅地方，係咁事不宜遲啦，講先。咁第一首係 Fishing in a Pawn Shop 啦，咁都比較耐之前寫，我會話係我正式寫 cultural 嘢 local cultural politics 嘅第一首作品。咁點解寫咧？講背景啦。咁其實我細個住灣仔，跟婆婆住。咁咧因為婆婆屋企係啲舊式地磚，即係好似啲舊式茶餐廳嗰啲綠色紋，跟住有啲白色點點嗰啲碎碎地嘅嗰啲地磚啦。咁同當鋪嗰啲好似，同埋細個灣仔區大家知和昌大廈啦。咁都有見過，都好中意，好神秘添啊！我覺得係好正。咁又諗起當仔呢一個傳統習俗，咁係啲水上人咧，佢哋以前會為咗個 BB 可能快高長大啦，會當一當佢，然之後即刻領翻佢翻嚟。咁但係有好多悲劇就係佢哋當完之後就拋棄咗個 BB 唔翻嚟攞翻佢，係啦。咁呢個就係關於嗰個傳統習俗嘅首詩啦。咁我開始啦。Fishing in a pawn shop, black coils swimming on green bricks oscillate their darkened bodies. Through the white lotus pond, the eyes of the gods shine behind tilted wooden counter, as the incense sticks burn and becomes the daily bait for fish. The floor ripples as she walks across a veil of steel with her precious jewel. Stamping red ink on yellow invoice paper, bold as the teeth of wolves licking the fur of their pups, they are approvals from the deities who weave destiny. He carries what the clients requested just to accept a mother's silent departure, and a child sucking his thumb like a hooked fish. 係啦，希望大家中意呢首啦。咁第二篇叫做 People on Water 啦，咁 literally translation 就係水上人啦。係啊，咁可能有人就會問，喂 Louise 點解你咁中意寫可能同水上人有關嘅習俗？因為上面嗰首詩都係同水上人有關啦。咁因為其實我婆婆嘅 background 就係佢係一個學老人啦，咁即係潮汕地區住嘅人啦，咁佢哋落咗嚟香港大概係文革嘅時候啦，同我太公，咁有時會聽佢哋講學老話，亦都會聽好多故仔，咁所以就會 inspire 到我寫呢一啲嘢。不過我自己唔識聽，唔係好識講學老話，係啦，可以學下。咁我又可以寫呢個學老 English poetry。好啦，咁呢首係 People on Water 啦，就係講諗起水上人就諗起避風塘。咁香港係人都知道係四面環海， 係啊，即使你去到呢一個嘅上水北區，你都係有條河隔住你嘅，係啦，羅湖嗰條河啦。咁係啦，又諗起水嘅 insecurity，跟住又諗起其實呢個城市係咪真係屬於我哋嗰啲政治不穩定嘅氛圍，就寫咗呢首。People on water, we have never left the water. The lining of the city does not stand on the frosting of pavements or the cremated remains of yesterday's construction. Our buses run on roads of water like a boat under the black rain. Our mattresses have memories of our sinking, slowly dissolved. The levitating floors of homes are lies about separating land from the ocean. The rebars root in the concrete above, the foundation above, the deeds above, developers above, the reclamation lands above, white people policy above you and me. Like a typhoon shelter, we sleep in victorious palms, not knowing when our heads will breathe underwater. 係啦，同埋唔記得講，其實呢首詩都係 inspire by 香港本身個 history 啦。咁除咗因為香港四面環海之外咧，其實最早期嘅香港人即係未有可能我阿婆呢啲人難民落嚟香港扎根香港之前，其實香港好多人都係漁民啦，咁所謂水上人啦，佢哋就係住喺海邊，然之後當有風或者隻船唔用就會收埋喺避風塘嗰度嘅，係啦。咁所以對話點解 never left the water 就係可能大家都係同一個源頭，諗翻香港嘅 origin。但係當你以前可以話你 claim 香港嘅時候，而家呢刻你得唔得？係咪我哋都要匿翻入水底或者俾人撳落水底？好 depressing。雖然嚟緊嗰首都好 depressing， 我今日讀嘅先好 depressing， 對唔住大家。咁講呢首先啦，呢首叫 Fish Skin。咁魚皮可能大家都會中意食炸魚皮啦，我好中意食炸魚皮啦，因為我婆婆以前係喺灣仔開潮州粉麵檔，係啦，永城麵檔。咁永城食店，對唔住，永城對唔住。咁咧其中我細個最中意除咗係魚蛋河啦，因為僆仔除咗魚蛋河有咩食得啫？就係炸魚皮啦。咁仲要係哇，真係好好食。出面嘅炸魚皮都好食，但係冇咗細個嗰陣味。咁同埋其實寫咗呢首詩主要係講緊好多內臟，好多 body 嘅 disorientation。主要係因為嗰陣時好多人移民啦，咁我又驚自己可能會唔捨得呢個地方，但係我又覺得我自己好中意呢個地方，又唔想移民。跟住我就個腦入邊產生咗一種好驚嘅現象，就係我移咗民仲會唔會認得香港，或者我認識嘅香港仲會唔會存在，或者我翻到嚟我仲對唔對得住自己，有好多可能過唔到自己良心嘅問題。不過我諗如果要移民嘅話，要走嗰一刻就會知㗎啦。我而家呢刻未知住，所以我就繼續留喺度。可能我太撚中意香港。好啦 ，Fish Skin。My friends are going ashore. The next time I see them, they will become 炸魚皮, skinned by different hands, deep fried with a new language. They return seasoned in salted water. 魚蛋 and 魚皮 are immigrations of skin and flesh, bodies scattered, mix and match, losing location of our organs. I observe my waters. Maybe it's better that my fins can reach the net. 你唔使俾人揀走啊！你唔係被選中嘅孩子啊！你唔使走。我覺得有啲嘢都要感恩，至少我屋企人冇逼我移民，或者我屋企人根本就冇諗住移民，或者我根本就唔夠錢移民，可能係不幸中嘅大幸啦。我唔知啊，或者係不幸中嘅不幸，你唔知香港呢幾年會點㗎嘛？係咪？係啦，咁就好 depressing。不過好似要講最 depressing 嗰首，咁呢首係 Sea Skin 啦，咁又係直譯海皮嘅。係啦，咁點解咧？因為我好中意行海皮，我諗好多香港人都會中意行海皮啊！嗰個 feel 係好正，即係聞到海嗰陣鹹鹹地嘅風嘅味啦，然後聽到啲浪嘅聲，跟住聽到可能側邊人跑步啊、散步，你都會好舒服。我中意呢個感覺，但係同時之間，即係你又諗起海上面嘅載具小輪啦，小輪又係走㗎啦。好多唔同嘅意象都係同離開有關，即係喺我覺得哇香港真係好撚靚嘅同時之間，我又有種好想可能要走嘅感覺，好矛盾嘅其實係啦。我嘗試講緊可能過去已經有啲人離開咗，佢哋 或者過嚟香港嘅時候佢哋啲感覺係點啦，係啦。Sea skin, footsteps scratch the skin of shores between 海皮 are parting waves of apologies. To leave one place for another, the modern chose flight. In the past, my grandfather swam. The population, like ascars, peels off to reveal a thinner layer of damaged skin. 小販 uses 鑊鏟 pasting black pearls, waves after waves, heat transfers through water. Hot steamed sweet potatoes, blackened skin falls and stays, yellow body crash landed. We shed our dead skins, swimming, searching for a better future. 係咁，你又見到好多同皮有關嘅 imagery。咁其實當時又係我啱啱有呢個紋身啦，係啊 Hogan 同 Wooden 係啦。咁點解話死皮同埋結焦咧？就因為大家知道紋身 heal 嘅時候係會甩皮，咁好痕嘅，跟住你又要忍住唔拗佢，但係你忍完之後佢係真係會好靚好靚，係啦。咁一來咁啦，二來嗰時冬天咁。有啲人咧喺度炒栗子啦，同埋有呢個煨番薯咁，周街都係好香啊！咁就 incorporate 呢啲 imagery 入去咯。特別可能大家移咗民或者離散之後，就會覺得啊，好掛住香港嘅食物。到底喺外地會唔會仲食到香港家的感覺咧？係啦，咁我都幾 concern 呢樣嘢。我諗我最掛住香港嘅話，應該都會係食物㗎啦。到時係啦，可能為咗食物而走係啦。咁講下創作靈感，其實大家知即係頭先都聽到好多，就係我會用自己屋企嘅嘢啦，或者細細個見到嘅嘢，自己中意嘅嘢去撈埋一齊啦。其實呢幾首嘅 conjugal 成分比較少嘅嚇，一般寫 conjugal 詩或者寫啲好 cultural 嘅詩，我都係平時攞定啲 example， 即係例如啲slang，let's say 屌乸媽頂硬上。其實佢個 origin 就係當時廣東有個將軍打仗，咁佢每次咧就有呢個口頭禪去幫自己壯膽。後來佢死咗之後咧，啲人為咗紀念佢就開始講呢一句嘢去紀念佢啦。咁後來點解會有屌乸聲咧？就係因為當時啲人可能將呢句嘢public落報紙度，但係啲報紙就唔想佢哋講粗口，唔想鬧人哋阿媽，咁就用咗星星嗰個符號咧嚟代替阿媽，咁就叫屌乸聲啦。係啦，咁其實即係平時都係儲呢啲 example， 咁啱用嘅時候你就會知㗎啦。係，我而家仲未揾到一個啱用嘅，可能睇完呢段片嘅朋友可能會寫到屌乸媽嘅一首詩啦，咁係啦，可能呢個係個 prompt 嚟嘅，大家加油。同埋我自己中意寫啲同 body 有關嘅，即係同頭先內臟啦、皮膚啦，係咯。因為我可能比較重口味，我中意 imagine 你個人 set 嘅時候，你嘅身體內臟都係好扭曲，你會好唔舒服，嗰種 physical 嘅 disorientation 係最直接，係啊，即係好似 body horror 咁樣，你見到一個人咧啲手好奇怪咁樣，你都會突然之間覺得好唔舒服，佢最直接俾到衝擊你，咁我就係要呢啲最直接嗰下噴咗去咁講。同埋我自己平時就中意一係沖涼嘅時候無啦啦諗到啲好正嘅 line 就喺嗰度開始，跟住可能15分鐘就寫完一首。我唔中意長時間執詩嘅，或者我中意搭叮叮搭巴士冇嘢做，跟住咁啱可能聽歌聽到某隻得意嘅字，或者突然之間諗起啲嘢，跟住無啦啦彈到佢好正嘅 line，跟住由嗰度 start 㗎啦，跟住可能落車就一首詩㗎啦。係啦，咁可能我寫詩嘅方法比較奇葩啦，咁係啦。OK，去再聽下其他創作者嘅心路歷程。咁至於點解揀 Canto Cutie 咧？其實一開始係我朋友鄭添添推薦我，喂 Louise 你啲 conjugal 詩好正啊，你投俾呢間啦，跟住就投咗 Education Gap 同埋呢一個嘅老豆 Old Bean 俾Canto Cutie 啦，咁就 pub 咗係 Volume 4，好開心啊，係啦，咁今次就 pub 咗4首同水或者同魚有關嘅詩，係咪可以整個 collection 叫 Fish and Water？ 係啦，咁同埋做 interview 啦，多謝，係啦，點解 Canto Cutie 係因為好少真係會收 conjugal 嘅詩，即係如果我將個 conjugal 嘅詩出去 publish 咧，係冇人會收，點解咧？因為啲 editor 睇唔明，係啦，我需要啲真係有翻可能華裔用中文寫作嘅人，或者成長背景嘅人去睇呢啲嘢，如果唔係嘅話，咁冇。同埋個 audience 都好重要啦，即係無論你係華裔咧、離散，你係啱啱移民去新嘅地方，又或者你係一個留喺香港嘅香港人，咁 我會想你睇到呢啲嘢。我寫 Congress 都係寫俾呢一啲人睇嘅啫。係啦，即係如果有其他 international 嘅人睇到，令到佢哋好 curious 去認識呢一啲 Irisa language 或者呢一啲點解咁 exclusive 嘅你啲 poetry，咁都好啊，因為佢哋可以切身咁樣了解到香港或者用華語溝入其他嘢嘅 hybrid language 嘅呢啲地方，佢哋有好多問題。咁其實我都覺得係好嘅，不過而家就應該冇咩呢個機會啦。但係我覺得 Canto Cutie 係可以做到呢樣嘢都好正，同埋我自己私心啦，我好中意 Canto Cutie 寫嗰啲即係 include 好多 artwork，我好中意，跟住就認識咗好多好勁嘅 artist 啦，跟住我就私心成日喺度睇佢哋 Instagram，亦都識到啲新朋友啦，咁就十分開心，我覺得 Canto Cutie 係十分勁，加油啊，係啦，跟住話嚟緊其實都冇咩話說其實我係香港 Out Loud 隨言詩係啦，香港隨香港嘅一個 organizer 啦，咁嚟緊我哋每個月嘅第一個星期三就會喺啲 Aftermath 嗰度做一個 monthly 嘅 poetry reading 啦，大多數有個 theme，所以你唔跟 theme 都冇乜問題，咁可以 come up 啦，咁你去到嗰度 sign up 就得㗎啦。咁我哋每個月有唔同 host 啦，可能嚟緊月尾，可能嚟緊下幾個月我會 host 一次啦。唔知㗎，可以過嚟睇下，可能到時就 Congress 㗎啦 ，Congress 嘅天下，哈哈哈。咁可以過嚟玩啦。另外香港其實都有好多 poetry event，大家都可以去下，係啦。咁我諗我都係講住咁多先，加油啊大家！愛 Canto Cutie，愛 Canto Cutie，愛 Canto Cutie，好重要，所以要講3次啦。
Hi guys, I'm Christy Leung. It's my Portuguese name. Everybody calls me Daisy, and I'm known as Creating Daisy on social media. I'm a tattoo artist based in Lisbon, born and raised, and today I will show you my comeback to painting. I studied painting in college, and after I finished my graduation, I decided to take a break and pursue tattoo. And 5 years from that, which is now, I decided to come back to painting. I think it made sense for me to paint again, and actually I felt the need to do it. I think tattoo wasn't filling the hole that I left in my heart in a artistic way. So I decided to explore and to go back to painting, and in a way use the same strategy that I was using in tattoo, which was to explore my culture and ancestry through my arts, something that I didn't really have the chance to do while I was growing up, and while being a little bit more Chinese that they wanted was just for us to, a way for us to be persecuted for it. So now I feel safe and proud from my culture enough for me to also share it with other people. So I brought it to my art, and yeah, I really enjoy doing it actually. I think that it's very difficult to enter the art world, especially when you're not part of the society you were born in. And I was the first Chinese tattoo artist in Lisbon. And even though I didn't see much of a representation there, I thought that maybe I will find it in other aspects of the art world, but still nothing was there. There's not many Chinese artists in Portugal or outside Portugal, Chinese ancestry artists, nothing. So I kind of decided or put it on myself to be my own representation and give myself that visibility that I needed. And I don't know, maybe we could inspire other people to do the same, or feel that even though the world doesn't give them the space to do it, it doesn't mean that it isn't there for us to take. So I'm taking the space that I need, and yeah. So I have a bunch of collectives and projects ongoing. You can see them all on my website, creatingdaisy.com, and also on my Instagram, creatingdaisy, and my collective Zelo with a Z and a U. And you can also follow my studio, which is flourish.studio on Instagram. Yeah, you can see all of my stuff and all my recent, old, and future projects in there.
Hello, 大家好. My name is Tin-yuet, born and raised in Hong Kong. I've been here in Toronto since last October. I am writing poems, critiques, feature articles, and reviews and interviews in Chinese and English. Creating is an important aspect of my life. I'm always fascinated by great stories and people. Writing them down is my way to remember them. Passport photos. People lining up, waiting for their turns, for their names to be called, for the better odds. Strangers gather, but not many are chatting. Sharing the same goal, but not revealing. Trying to control the destiny, but are afraid of facing the fate. The photo booth setup is simple. A wall, an unprofessional camera and photographer, a blinding flashlight. A listless voice says, sit or stand there. Don't let your hair cover your ears. Take off your glasses. Lower your chin. Look at the camera. Feel like a puppet. You know you better not saying a word, but squeezing the best smile that will engrave on that application page. To leave the people who will screen your whole life with the best first impression. Sorry, no smile. The puppeteer imposes an order. Flash. Smile becomes curve. Holding yourself for a millisecond, you are having an unwanted photo taken. From now on, you are an applicant, an immigrant, a citizen who is leaving the route and having new stamps on the new passports. It took me a long while to decide to leave Hong Kong, and I'm not sure if that is going to be a temporary or permanent one. When I went through the whole application process and had my pictures taken, I've always been told, don't smile. And honestly, I hate being told not to smile. It feels like that marks the beginning of my exile. And when you're not allowed to show any emotions, when you are forced to leave your homeland, that disconnection brings absurdity. That's why I want to record that moment in my poem. You can always find my work on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @walk_talk_chalk. And I am compiling the poems I have been writing, and hopefully one day I'm going to publish them. I hope there is going to be an editor who can give me comments on my work. And I also want to sharpen my skills as a writer. So I want to write script or interviews. And you can find me online. You can also find me on the streets of Toronto. I'm an avid walker. So no matter I'm in Hong Kong or in Toronto or other places, you can always spot me on the streets. Hopefully to see you on the street one day and say hello to each other.
I'm Christy Leung, a multidisciplinary artist based in Hong Kong. I make really all kinds of things like writing, music, photography, zines, drawings, and I guess what I make really depends on how I'm feeling and what it seems to be the most fitting means to construct a narrative, to communicate with others, or at the very core, how it can help me deconstruct and just try to make sense of a lot of things that are happening in life, in this city, in this world, and within myself. So today I'm going to share 2 poems. The first one is a prose poem in English called Scaffolding, and the second one is a poem in Chinese called Yanpingdo, which is the name of a street in Causeway Bay, Hong Kong, an area where I pretty much grew up in. So while both poems talk about completely different things, they are both reflections upon the rapid changes the city has been going through. So now I'm going to read from my poems, and the first one is called Scaffolding. I was unsure when they started having these up. For the longest time, I could only recollect the noise that disrupted my daily labors, Skype calls, job interviews. Regularity installed on a curved surface. Nothing quite fit. Awkwardly bizarre, yet failing to arouse or surprise anyone who was passing by. We are so used to these scenes, fleeting imageries of the city. We blame it on childhood or good old days. These terms reduce sentiments and normalize gradual changes, seeping through our daily routines. Nothing is an eyesore when you have already seen it enough. New brushed over the old. The other day, I saw a sign that was installed, declaring the evolutionary concept of creating modern traditions. So that's how it will be. Roots upheld, what do we mean when we talk about colonial past? Do we condemn or do we romanticize? Based on relativity, it depends, as you said. Whichever is better, whoever is left to remember what is better, who gets to decide what works best for a land that no one has security over. Territorial rule includes people that dwell within those lines. We who will never have the choice to draw those boundaries ourselves, nor direct where the amniotic fluid flows to, where and when we grow up, where we can never claim as our own, what type of laboring days we must endure based on the institutional forces that we can never have a grasp on, forced upon us before we were born. We will never know when our old homes will be covered and then covered with bamboo sticks. One day I finally witnessed the unveiling of a new building. The change was not apparent, but I knew it was different because there was scaffolding. But it was unsettling knowing that I could not tell the difference. So this is the second poem called Yanpingdo, and it's going to be in Cantonese. Yanpingdo 轉角位三角位轉角中的你我，能否憶起當時的你曾牽着我，每天在高樓地盤間徘徊穿梭。是你帶我初嘗後觀念後的浪漫，如今演變成抗疫日常的時裝店。是你讓我親近地庫百佳的田雞，如今被製成時尚情侶的香水瓶。我雖被嚇怕，但幸好你已麻木。說什麼擁抱失落和習慣失去，要相信當下土壤細流的無常，會成就未來理想國度的正常。正如曾經磨損嘴角的冬甩，會教曉我逆來順受這一切。正如今日勢利風光的街景，已放棄了這不再如初的你。正如往後黃髮垂髫的離散，會促使我毫不留情地獨行。轉角位三角位轉角中的你我，有天會隨風而去而無從依戀，永遠剩下一個而只得一個，繼續在高樓地盤間徘徊穿梭。So what inspired me to write this is that while growing up in Hong Kong, I had never really paid attention to nor treasured anything my city had to offer or had lost. And I had always yearned for a life outside this suffocating and tiny place, and I did for 4 years while pursuing my undergraduate degree in the US. And it was only then when I realized my love for this city and how its complex roots have shaped my cultural identity, which to this point I still cannot quite pinpoint what the city entails and what my Hong Kong identity really is. And why is that I just feel like I don't belong anywhere else but here. The city, my home, and where things could just come and go so quickly and sometimes rather ruthlessly. or just suddenly plummet into some unimaginably terrifying but actual real-life situations while I was away. Or worse, an enduring turmoil building onto this bleak future. So both poems, Scaffolding and Yan Pingdo, are about how coming back to Hong Kong one summer break while studying abroad for college and realizing a building has been completely demolished is not an unusual scene. And walking across the streets, hoping to buy something from that store you saw the other day, but then now it has shut down and has property developer ads all over it, like it's not an unusual scene. You standing in front of a new store and being so used to like how nice and new it is, and you forgot what used to be there like last year, 3 years ago, or when you were 5. Such is not an unusual scene. And this is just how things come and go in this city, and how we are so accustomed to losing things, grieving, then forgetting and adapting and repeating all over again and not remembering what we have once lost and what once was. So on the surface and in the most literal sense, these poems are ruminating over these changes and, of course, the sentimentality that comes with changes and how we will perceive and carry them. And the changes or the signifiers of these impending changes are illustrated in these poems as like physical or like visible, palpable structures like scaffolding or a change of the storefront or mega structures that just popped up from nowhere. But of course, these changes are just the tip of the iceberg of what we're experiencing daily here. And so there are also other kinds of non-physical changes driven by specific events or circumstances. And to an extent, they are still apparent and can be identified and articulated. But there is also the worst, the most unsettling and elusive type that is just lurking around, like shapeless, nameless, unspoken of, and something that we just cannot quite make sense of and yet can still feel its presence. Like we just know something is off, but somehow cannot make sense of what it is specifically, like some kind of unsettling feeling of perpetual loss, the building up of collective fear of loss, while knowing that one day our awareness of these changes will also just slip our minds as our perception adapts to this new norm and calls this reality or just how things should be. And just how devastating it is that we cannot control and trust our memories as we grow older. And who will be left to remember all these things and how things were and have been in this city? And who can tell our future generations these stories that we once collectively remembered? And so these were all these questions that I was thinking while I was writing these poems. And also, I wrote these poems a year ago, back when the city still had a colonial past and was deemed a British colony in the past. But recently we have been told that the term colony is no longer appropriate and the colonial history was a lie. It never happened. And so every day we are still trying to reconcile our understandings of the past. And of course, this is still subject to official amendments. So in the future, I might have to change my poem as well while my poem is about change. So it's quite meta, coincidentally. So to plug myself, I have many things I am currently working on in terms of writing music or maybe zines that I would occasionally share on Instagram or YouTube and Spotify for music, or other platforms and publications like Canto Cutie as a contributing writer. But I don't actually have an artist Instagram because art is life and I don't know how to separate it from my personal life and identity. But if you would like to stay tuned, and feel free to follow me on Instagram. It's at CHR_STY, same for YouTube and Spotify. And there are also links and references to things that I've been working on there. And if you don't mind seeing personal things and maybe sometimes a lot of memes and recently a lot of capybaras, then feel free to follow me. And thanks again for your support.
Hi, my name is Drew Campbell. I am a writer from Claremont, California, and I typically write poetry and short stories. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a poem I wrote for Canto Cutie, Volume 5. This poem is called Deluded. a reflection through a pool of moving water rather than steady glass, half hidden in shadow, the other side overexposed, red hairs entwined with the dark coat, facing shapes of doubt, a physical form irrelevant to the mind inside, raised from rituals of upbringing, certain of who I am, but in isolation from those who share my heritage. They see blood diluted, eyes not angled enough. Their ears hear my forked tongue, misspeaking, as all others see ambiguity, assuming incorrectly, just an uneven blend of unwanted tones. And still, my origins remain alive. Tiny regrets linger, but fade with time. The consumption of early pleasures feed the memories, never forgotten, flowing through fields of horses, living freely in the water, with no desire to change for those who shun them, choosing instead to forge alternate paths, crafting words into a clear picture, stories that few would understand, not told to them, only spoken through severed lips, into my own mirror of ice, melting to a new form, becoming more aware and learning to steady the shaken perception. The halves dissolve into one solid shade of glass in a vast world set before a matte painting in the distant fog. So this poem was influenced by growing up multiracial and not feeling like I completely fit in with either side of the cultures I come from, and ultimately learning to just accept who I am and learn to discover myself as an individual, and also learning to choose the best part of all the cultures I come from and embracing and celebrating those pieces of that culture, and just self-acceptance. When you aren't going to be accepted by other people, you have to learn to accept yourself and keep an eye out for those who will accept you for who you are. Currently, I am publishing Broken Galaxies magazine, which is a zine series featuring work from creators all over the world, and they focus on themes of science fiction, horror, and fantasy. And these, along with updates for future projects, can be found on my Instagram, which is Vlacinda_Stormdrain. Everyone, thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Hello， 我係 Helen， 你亦都可以叫我做 miiasoey。咁我係一位香港嘅藝術家啦。咁過咗嚟 New York City 咧，都大概1年啦。咁我通常咧就都會work with acrylic 啊，或者係marker 或拼貼啊，咁好多唔同嘅媒介我都有掂嘅。咁我通常比較着重嘅主題咧，都係一啲圍繞住我生活上嘅靈感啦，又或者係大自然啦。咁最近咧，我都因為喺一個香港人喺紐約嘅身份咧，或者係嗰個過程啊、生活嘅點滴啊，都inspire 到我唔少嘅。Hi, I'm Helen. So you may also know me as miiasoey. I'm an artist from Hong Kong, and it is almost a year since I moved to New York. So I create art with various mediums such as paintings, illustrations, scenes, collages, etc. So both physically and digitally, it depends. And I tend to channel my thoughts on what is going on around me, or lately my work has been focused more on the relationship with nature and us, and also my experience in New York as a Hong Konger. 咁喺嚟緊呢期嘅 Canto Cutie 咧，咁我嘅 art 咧其實就會係嚟自於我呢一本我是位很差的藝術老師嘅先啦。咁其實入邊咧就會係一啲文字同埋有啲圖畫，就話俾人聽其實藝術可以點樣玩啊，點樣睇啊。咁係咯。So for the arts that is featured in this upcoming Canto Cutie photo, it is actually is from my scenes that title I am a bad art teacher. So it has like notes and also like pictures describing actually basically my takes on how we can view arts outside or inside a classroom. And here is a few notes from the scenes. So without many agendas or expectations, I wish that you can look into our surroundings without have to thinking about too much. I wish you can break out of the frames. Art isn't created only on this paper or the product. 咁都有中文嘅，因為係中英對照。So my scenes is actually bilingual, so it can approach to a wider audience. 咁其實我是位很差的藝術老師咧，個靈感來自於我喺香港嘅時候，其實係一位藝術老師啦，都教咗小朋友都好幾年㗎啦。咁有時候喺尤其是喺亞洲嘅地方，一啲家長或者個社會嘅期望咧，其實會逼到一啲小朋友冇咗嗰個 freedom 啊。咁所以我喺創造或者去帶領啲小朋友點樣去認識藝術嘅時候咧，嗰個方法可能會同平時傳統嗰啲有少少唔一樣，係啦。So I'm the bad art teacher is actually inspired from my experience in teaching kids art in Hong Kong for a few years. Sometimes the expectations from the parents or the society that may be way too strict than you can imagine, especially from Asia. So the kids were expected to make perfect circles or realistic drawings of color within the lines, or like following particular steps. In my art teaching journey, I sort of just came up with my own ways of how to inspire them, which were maybe sometimes not following the traditional routes. And I do wish the kids to enjoy the process more than focus too much on the final outcome. So that's why to some people I could be a bad art teacher. My current show, A Bad Art Teacher from Hong Kong, is at Art Bean Coffee Roasters in Chinatown, New York City until the end of October. It showcases my other scenes and my drawings, and the cafe collaborates with me to create their awesome version of the drink Yin Yang. So it's like an espresso and milk tea mix. It is available during the exhibition period. And if you wish to follow more of my art or get my scenes and art prints, do drop in or follow my Instagram. Again, thank you Canto Cutie for having me.
Hi, I'm Irisa Kwok. I'm based in Cambridge, but I grew up in Hong Kong. I'm in Cambridge because I matriculated at the University of Cambridge this September studying English, and I submitted 6 poems to Canto Cutie under the section title Invader, and that's what I'll be talking to you guys about today. So reading my writing takes more than 5 minutes, which is not possible. So I'll just talk for 5 minutes about my writing. So the first poem, I Beg for the Scraps of the Home and End, is pretty much what the byline says is. It's a tribute to the 10,000 Chinese slaves of World War I who never returned home. It was initially going to be a very I'm sorry for what you went through sort of thing, but I realized who am I to really say that when I'm speaking from a position of being a testament to the success of imperialism. I speak British English. I know it better than my mother tongue. I live in a British environment. I'm going to British University. And so it sort of looks at imperialism as this apple, this education that through generations just bioaccumulates until it just sort of sprouts and becomes, sort of takes the place of the alveoli, sucking the oxygen out of your lungs. And yeah, make it that way you will. Hypothesis of the eldest daughter. So I'm an eldest daughter myself, and this is sort of conversation between a mother who was an eldest daughter and her first daughter, her first child. And it just sort of, it starts with the mum being like, okay, this is what I'm handing down to you, this is what I'm teaching you. And the daughter initially rejects it. She doesn't really understand, like, why can't I break out on my own? Why can't I break out on my own? And the mother basically reminds her, like, you are what I make of you. No part of you is not a part of me. And so the daughter sort of fights back, saying, although my name is what you gave, that doesn't mean it wasn't already mine. But then you sort of get this punishment where she's just sort of abandoned in a forest and, mocked at, saying, what is there to cry about? And this girl responds, she's been speaking English, but she responds Mandarin, 对, right. And she repeats the first stanza as a representation of the cycle repeating. So the multicultural riddle was really written from a place of anger for me. It was when I had just found out that my grandmother died and my family was fighting over what kind of funeral she should have, because everyone in my family is of different religious denominations, and my relatives, it was just really sad. So I wrote this in that sort of teenage, pre-grief, post like shock and annoyance that, such thing is happening, like shock that my grandmother's dying, annoyance that everyone's fighting over her funeral. And kind of in the end, I sort of bow a little, take a nod to the Greek purgatory, the asphodel field. And yeah, I don't know, it sounds like the nicest version of purgatory there is, so I think I would like everyone to experience that. So the Garden of Eden is actually a response to a poem written by Dakota Warren on YouTube called Garden of Eden, and I just sort of watching it was just overcome with this sort of sadness, being like, this girl has lived in a world where, what she can write about poem-wise is love and queer love and, relationships with religion, something you can choose, something you can get out of, something you can explore your relationship with without sort of realizing that you know the limits of who you are. And I just got really sad that I can write about things like that, things like nature and beauty and religion, sort of like the romantics, because the systems in which I grew up, systems of which I'm made of, I have things blocking the way to that sort of perfect Keats-like elation. And so that's my response to that, being like, maybe one day I can worry about the same thing she does. So Canton Equinox is about the 2019 civil unrest, the protests. I lived right on the street where it was happening, Nathan Road, and it was just sort of me trying to like make sense of why it was happening. And I realized that, in the end it says, don't look up, my darling, spring will never come. That is sort of my admission of defeat, because if you love someone, you will ask them not to fight, because you can see now that it's very unlikely that the change you want to happen will happen. And then Pride Week in 2021, it's about the year I turned 18, I went to all these Pride events, and it was great, but at the end I always had to, the lights came on and we had to help each other take off the face paint and change clothes and walk out of by the back instead of the front. And that was just something that I really wanted to celebrate in Hong Kong, that, we may be repressed, but we are here. We're still here. I usually like to just sort of try and make sense of my place in the world, because I'm quite young, I'm 18, I'm just sort of, hovering in this limbo of, this limbo of like, who am I? How did I come to this? Am I like a legacy? Is there like a history behind me? Is there, something I should be doing with my life instead of what I am doing with my life? Where should my life be going? It's just sort of like, I feel like I've just woken up. I feel like I've spent 18 years unconscious and just woken up like today and just been like, oh my God, I am a product of the systems that tried to indoctrinate me my whole life, all these different systems. And now I have to decide, like, irregardless of, what sort of moral position they're coming from, which one is right for me. And so I think writing really helps me with that. So I will post, I'm not doing anything at the moment because I'm preparing to go into university, but I will post whatever I'm doing on Instagram at Irisa Kwok, IRISAKWOK. And you can just sort of see my no holds barred sort of chaotic minstrelsy and the way in which I sort of dance through the world, being like, woo-hoo, these are, I think, these are, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Li from Hong Kong, and I write poems. Today I'm going to read 3 poems that I've written, which are How to Become a Witch, and Hunger, and last but not least, Metaphorical. How to Become a Witch. 1. Razor. Imagine the shock of missing the first ballet class at 13. Their synchronized steps, twin metal clasps biting into my armpits. Who can forget a pocket of blood dug open, so slick and so very smooth? I prayed it all to go away, scrubbed my arms raw so no one would see through the werewolf of stubble. One day ribbons blossomed in my skin, and I thought, finally, so much red means for sure this is part of growing up. 2. Scissors. A Bible or a hand-me-down cheap how, you're not sapat yayi anymore. Ropes knitted out of childhood fears, grandmother's gifts, tenacious tenderness woven into our veins. Who was I before all this? Knots of floor-length hair painstakingly spun into braids. Do I dare carry on or snip it all off? 3. Matchbox. Metamorphosis. Noun. Change caused by intense pressure or heat during formative years. Take a sprig of lavender in one hand and a tablespoon of peipago in another. Sprinkle the ashes of our sisters long stricken before. Douse with mineral water. Mix by hand. Our callous palms from playing with fire will easily pick up the crumbs of exploding stars. Put everything into a low boil. Let it simmer for 40 weeks. Allow time for our legs to sprout confetti. Need to unleash the bitch, the wicked, the unkempt, flame-tongued hag, all strapped in a straight jacket of chiffon. Then rub our crystallized gums with their screeches and make sure we never get caught up in the fumes. Okay, the second poem I'm going to read is Hunger. So, Hunger. 1942, under Japanese occupation. Burnt bark and hard-boiled eggshells. How much rice in exchange for her? Cradle her head like a newborn turnip culled out of barren soil. 2022, waiting in line at Sushiro. No fun to feast on a body laid bare. My fingers hover at the conveyor belt, her curves rotating out of my reach. Desire is a pit wrapped in seaweed dripping through my hands. Nothing boiling water can't transform with a dash of soy sauce. No losses steaming takwal can't solve. All we have is flour and banana leaf, and it's all we need to raise the wok. Easier to rinse it all off than drown in an omakase of once. In the scalding tub, my pores gape open to dilute the ripples on my thighs, and I'm cleansed again. You don't know what it's like to starve, to stuff your body with root vegetables until your belly has no room to ache anymore. You're stick thin, no husband will want you like this. Do you have enough to eat? How to free these sagging limbs from the weight of what she wants me to be. I tell Grandma there's more to fill than mouths and wombs, but she only tilts her deaf ear and lovingly presses a sweet potato into my fist. Third poem I'm going to read is Metaphorical. Metaphorical. Red beans, red string weaving through your fingers and my wrists. An unspeakable love language like everything else we don't talk about. A pair of butterflies, a Rolex watch from Taobao, counting down the years we lie flattened between bunk beds, staring up stickers of clouds and half-ripped slogans. Because symbolism is all we have when gilded logos surrogate everything except a list of stopwords that slice our air, sudden chokehold at border control. Red passport in your pocket, separating my sky from yours, and you from the baby sister you've always wanted. If I'd been born 30 meters up north, I'd have never lit a candle for a grief we cannot name, never known a growing list of dates to commemorate, or the siblings our generation never got to meet. Wailing in their cribs, fistful of red petals, blazing through propaganda posters as you blast ink-washed peonies over firewalls, over our burner phones. So what led me to write about these? For the first poem, How to Become a Witch, it's not really about magic or witchcraft, but rather it's about the journey from a girl to womanhood. So I use 3 different objects to symbolize different times of a young woman's life. So razor, scissors, and matchbox, right? And so we go from being a teenager who suddenly realizes with horror that her body's changing in ways she doesn't want to being in her mid-20s and I don't know, being expected to like know what you're gonna do with your life, but not really, and then trying to pick between the expectations of the previous generations and the social scripts that you're expected to follow, or paving your own way, which is a lot more difficult but also so rewarding. And finally, we reach like the birth or the explosion or the metamorphosis into the woman that you really want to become, which the confident person that you are despite all of the criticism and the negativity and the deviance from the ideal womanhood. So this poem is basically the celebration of womanhood. And the second poem, Hunger, I wonder if it's possible to like have it shown on the screen rather than have me just read it out loud, because it's actually separated into 2 poems in a way. So it's supposed to be a dialogue between my grandmother and myself about food essentially, but also about being full versus being fulfilled, about body image, about our wants and desires. So I know a lot of times people from an older generation find it hard to understand that our wants and desires aren't something that are necessarily tangible, but they still love us. And for my grandma, as I'm sure it's the same for a lot of you guys, her love language is food. So she shows her care towards me by offering food, which I appreciate. But at the same time, I sometimes struggle with the idea that all we need is to be fed and to own things, to have a family, to have babies. And it's just hard to try to explain this to somebody who loves you but just doesn't understand. So this is my attempt at a conversation with her in my own way. And last but not least, Metaphorical is about Hong Kong-China relations. So I don't know, this is a very complex issue, so I've been finding it hard to express myself like in real words. But with poetry and with symbols, I find it easier to imagine what it would be like if I were born in China instead of Hong Kong, and if I still think the same way and if I still want the same freedoms and rights, but I've never even had the chance to express any of these or dare think about these. So it's yeah, so basically it's my imagination of that and me trying to sympathize with that. Because I'm sure some people might read this and think I'm a Zhonghua Gao, which I don't think I am, but it's still, with all that's happening here in Hong Kong these couple of years, it's really made me more sympathetic towards what it's like up above when it's always been like that for some people all their lives. So yeah. So where can you find me? Can't. Just kidding. You can find me on my website at jocelynliwrites.com, and I'll post up my published works there, which you can check out for free mostly. So yeah, stay tuned.
Hello，大家好，我叫做 KC。我係一位 artist，用波鞋去創作嘅。咁我係 base 喺香港嘅。咁我要同大家介紹我創作出嚟嘅一個系列嘅作品，叫做 Ridiculous Sneakers。係啦，咁點解會用波鞋創作先啦？首先，或者我想用波鞋講啲咩咧？其實我想透過波鞋去講我哋當今嘅 social status 嘅，係啦，即係唔同嘅社會地位咁樣。咁我哋可以好簡單咁諗啦，即係可能我哋每日返工，跟住可能去做運動或者去街咁樣，我哋都會選擇唔同嘅鞋去着嘅，係啊。咁其實譬如 yoga 咁樣已經係一個即係慢慢發展成一個 lifestyle 嘅嘢啊，或者我哋去做 gym 去出街咁，可能有啲人係會去即係做運動打波咁樣，即係都會選擇唔同嘅鞋去做，甚至乎一個社會現象就係炒波鞋啦咁樣。咁大家可能去排隊或者去炒波鞋得到翻嚟嗰樣嘢，你再擁有佢嗰樣嘢，咁係咪有種優越感喺度咧？咁樣咁其實就係所謂 social status 就係講呢樣嘢咯，係啦。咁同埋因為我好中意波鞋嘅，好細個嘅時候就有，亦都有儲波鞋嘅。咁自然我就留意咗 sneaker art 呢樣嘢，咁發現好多時候都係喺波鞋上面畫嘢。咁我會覺得可以唔淨係咁樣嘅。咁 that's why 我就發現咗另一個睇波鞋嘅 perspective， 咁就將佢變咗做一個人樣咁樣。係啊，咁其實當初好嘅偶然嘅機會就係我將兩個扭蛋殼咁啊擺咗喺個鞋嘅上邊平放咁樣，咁跟住着鞋入去嗰個虛位咧，個窿位咧就好似個口咁樣，咁兩個扭蛋殼就好似鹹蛋超人咁兩隻眼咁樣。咁呢樣嘢好深刻喺我腦裏邊，但係我冇即時開始做呢個創作，都擺低咗好多年，成10年。跟住心血來潮先至開始，我諗3年前度啦，先至開始做呢個創作。咁一口氣就做咗，到目前為止有20-30個頭啦，個 portrait 啦咁樣，係啦。咁即係你喺畫面見到個部分啦，咁都係我挑選出嚟嘅。咁點解會參加今次呢個 showcase 或者呢個Canto Cutie 呢個雜誌啦，或者一個 e-publication 啦，因為我睇到首先睇到呢個 recruit 嘅時候，我覺得原來有個咁樣嘅平台去講緊一啲香港或者廣東文化嘅嘢，咁跟住但係可能一眾嘅人有部分嘅人亦都係喺西方嘅，咁 which is 咁樣嘅mix and match 衝擊咗之後，我覺得就根本就係好似香港本身生出嚟嘅一啲文化嘢咁樣，都係一啲中西匯集嘅嘢嚟嘅。咁所以我覺得 contents wise 亦都唔純粹可能係設計，唔純粹係藝術，有好多文字其他唔同 media 嘅創作。咁所以我覺得呢個平台係好好同埋正嘅。咁可能有啲就會覺得係小眾或者獨立咁樣，獨立創作、獨立媒體咁樣。咁 which is 我嘅創作都係啦，即係都係偏向冷門啲啦，或者絕對係獨立創作開始啦咁樣。咁其實我再落嚟，即係我 on and off 都有做啲展覽嘅，展示啲波鞋或者一啲print 咁樣嘅。咁其實都係以前嗰啲都係偏向商業化少，偏向藝術少少嘅。 咁未來我就想將可能會尋求多啲同品牌合作嘅機會啦，即係譬如運動牌子啦，跟住就用一啲即係可能出啲衍生品啦，咁希望嗰個 commercial 同埋 artistic 個 value 就會 balance 啲，去讓更加多人知道咯，係啊。咁可以 follow 我 IG 嘅，即係除咗知道我了解咗呢個系列之外，我 IG 其實都好容易記，都係同鞋有關嘅，就係嗰個 loafer，即係爛佬鞋啦，我哋俗稱 LOAFER，跟住加我名 KC，就可以喺 IG 上面揾到我，同埋 follow 我，睇到我最新嘅 work 同埋創作。Thank you。
Hi everyone, my name is Kitty N. Wong and I'm an illustrator here in Hong Kong. So I live in Hong Kong and I was born here, but I actually grew up in a really small town outside of Vancouver, BC. So most of my work is inspired by Hong Kong and I'm going to show you some of it. So this is my Let's Go Bakery miiasoey print, and I've made all of my childhood favorite bakery treats, so I'm sure you guys will recognize some of these items. And as well as drawing yummy foods, I also love to draw pretty girls, so I love to turn my illustration into like fun products that people can use in their daily life. So these are some of the folders that I've made. So this one is Miss Star Ferry. So if you guys ever been to Hong Kong, you'll probably have taken the Star Ferry. It's like it's a historical icon that we have. I think it's from the 1800s. It's a ferry boat that goes between the main like central Hong Kong island to Kowloon side. So this is Miss Star Ferry, and this is Miss Dongling Tam, Miss Ice Lemon Tea. So my favorite part of this is that her gloves are actually the straw that you always get in like Chinese diners. Although we're not really supposed to use straw anymore to be environmentally friendly, but it was just a cute nod to that. So yeah, and for this time, for Canto Cuties, I submitted my ad oil prints. So I made it into a postcard. And then, so my inspiration for this was there's so many things in Hong Kong that are disappearing, and one of them is those propane tank delivery guys. But a lot of my work, I like to draw women, and I like to draw like different types of women that I would feel empowered to see. So I drew this like super muscular delivery chick, and so she's got like the propane tanks, and she's wearing the classic outfit, like those like white tank tops, and she's got the like good morning towel and the bak fan yu, like white, what do you call those, just like white like slip-on sneakers. They're like really flimsy. Yeah, and then she's also got those gloves, those like laborer gloves. And she's got on her propane tank, it says, "You go, girl," because of course, Gayao, add oil is like, oh, like keep it going. And I think like since the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of my work has been about like encouragement and kind of like just like positivity, because I think like in my daily life now, like I really need that. Like on Instagram, I'm always looking at like kind of just like self-affirming quotes, and I'm like, oh, I'm like saving all of them. I'm like, oh, like whoever needs to see this today, like it's me, I needed to see that, so I wanted to like contribute that in my work. And when people see it, then they feel like, oh yeah, like what's the word I'm looking for, just they feel, I don't know, like just a sense of encouragement and happiness when they see it. So, and why did I choose Canto Cutie? So, I really wanted to share my work with like-minded people, and as an artist and illustrator, like sharing my work with people is the most important thing. I love painting. I could do it all day just by myself. I'm just like, I guess I'm quite introverted, so I could just paint all day. But if I'm not showing my work to people who might love it, I can't make a living. So people that might buy my prints, or people that might commission me for freelance work, like clients. So yeah, so like I'm super grateful that I found Canto Cuties and they accepted my submission so I can like share my work with people who are like looking to connect with this kind of artwork. Yeah, so thank you. So the next project I'm working on is so exciting. I am partnering with a friend of mine, and she's a tour guide in Hong Kong, and we are creating a Hong Kong mystery puzzle. So I really like puzzles, and I discovered during the pandemic that my friend also does. So we were like swapping puzzles. And another thing I love is reading cozy mystery novels, and so we try to combine our three passions. So our passion for Hong Kong, my love for mystery novels, and our love for puzzles into this mystery puzzle. So this is just like a super early prototype that I'm showing you. So this is Hi everyone, my name is Kitty Ann Wong and I'm an illustrator and artist living in Hong Kong. So I was born here in Hong Kong and I work and live here now, but I grew up in a really small town outside of Vancouver, BC. And all my paintings are really inspired by my childhood in Hong Kong. So I'm going to show you some of it. This is one of my latest pieces and it's Let's Go Min Bao Po. So it's got all my childhood favorites from the Chinese bakery. So I'm sure there's some things on here that you might remember, might make you feel really nostalgic and hungry. And as well as food, I love to draw pretty girls and fashion, and I love to turn my paintings into things that people can use in their normal life. So these are like filed folders that like you can put your like papers into. And this is Miss Star Ferry, and if you've ever been to Hong Kong, you'll probably have taken the Star Ferry. It's like one of our like historical icons. It's a ferry from the 1800s that takes people from the main Hong Kong island to the Kowloon side. And this is Miss Dong Ling Cha, Miss Ice Lemon Tea. And one of my favorite details is that her gloves is actually like the straws that you get in those like Cantonese Hong Kong diners. Even though I know we're not supposed to use straws anymore, but this is just a cute nod to that. So this is the artwork that I submitted for Canto Cuties, and it's the Ga Yao add oil painting that I did. And I love to draw anything inspired by Hong Kong. So, and there's so many things that are disappearing, and one of them is those like propane tank delivery guys. You just see them less and less. And I also love to paint women that I feel inspired to see in artwork. So I drew this super buff lady, and she's the propane tank delivery person, and she's wearing like the classic outfit. So she's got like the white tank top on and the like good morning towel, the laborer gloves, and the Bach Fan Yu Hai, which is those like white super flimsy sneakers. And on her propane tank it says "You go girl," and of course the message is like "Ga Yao, add oil." Just like I want to like when people see my artwork, they'll feel like very encouraged and happy. Because these days I feel like I really need that in my life. So whenever I'm on Instagram, like I'm always like scrolling and looking at all those like really like self-affirming quotes, and I'm like saving all of them, and then I'm like, oh, I don't know who needs to see this today, but it's like me, like I really need to see that today. So I wanted people to also have that feeling when they look at my art. So why did I choose to submit to Canto Cuties? First of all, I'm like so thankful that I found Canto Cuties. Like, it's a community that I really want to connect with, and I want to share my art with like-minded people. And for independent artists and creatives, that's so important to have an outlet like that, because like for me, like as an artist, I love to paint. I could like just sit at home and paint all day by myself, but if people that might love my work are not seeing it, then I can't really make a living, because I make a living selling my prints or like having clients commission me for freelance projects. And if the people that might love my work can't see it, then like that would be really hard for me. So yeah, I'm just super happy that I found Canto Cuties and they accepted my submission. So thank you. So for the next project, I'm so excited to share. I'm partnering with a friend, and she is a tour guide in Hong Kong, and we wanted to combine our love of puzzles during the pandemic, we realized that we both really love puzzles, and we were like swapping puzzles. And of course, we have both a huge love of Hong Kong, and I also love reading cozy mystery novels. So we wanted to combine our three passions, which is Hong Kong, puzzles, and also like mysteries. And we came up with this. This is a super, super early prototype, so I just printed this off. So this is just the box for the puzzle. So I cannot actually show you the real artwork of the puzzle. So the puzzle is a secret. So you'll just have to play the puzzle and then like follow the story and reveal the full image. And we're gonna be like launching this on Kickstarter soon. So hopefully you guys will support us and also play with it, because we put so much love and work into this, and I'm so proud of it, and I can't wait for people to see it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting Canto Cuties. Bye guys!
Hi, I'm Zoe. I'm originally from Hong Kong, but I'm currently living in London, and I'll be reading The Fisherman's Tale. The Fisherman's Tale. A whiff of the cigarette, the lapping sound of waves. Waiting. Lots of waiting. More waiting. The isolated but idyllic lives of fishermen. The lone fisherman is an underrated character in the dense and populous city of Hong Kong. Their quiet presence, dotted around the outskirts of the island, is overlooked by the hustle of metropolitanism, saturated with consumerist goods and hectic schedules. Fishermen are the terrapins of humans. They're at ease with themselves and with each other, most comfortable in or around water, and are found lounging on a rock, basked in sunlight, with their heads pointed towards water. On the days when I decide to walk by the sea and come across a fisherman, their presence is comforting to me. Their presence reminds me of everything I find comforting about the sea. If anything, their presence is symbolic of the love I have for the sea. My memories of home dissolve into the sea like the setting sun, fluid. My snapshot memories filter into my subconscious and into my dreams. In these memories, water is always in the background, grainy and out of focus. If I'm walking towards the west, towards my aunt and uncle's place, the sea is on my right. If I'm walking back home towards the east, the sea is on my left. The sea was never something I sought. It was gifted. I've memories of summers in the sea with salt in my hair, being stung by jellyfish and getting sunburnt all in one day, watching the sunset with my family on an outlying island. Memories of Fridays hanging around the noonday guns with my friends and watching sampan drivers trying to scam tourists after school. Memories of Sundays walking by dry stalls of dried fish on my way to my grandma's and getting scolded by my mom for being late because I decided to take the ferry home instead of the MTR. I've memories reconnecting with my childhood best friend on a promenade, sipping on drinks. We reminisced about playing in the same promenade during Mid-Autumn Festival as children with lanterns. These halcyon memories would be different without the sea at the background, without the whispers of the lapping waves filling silences, without my skin tingling from the warm breeze. If there is anything I miss most, 6,000 miles away from the island I call home, it is the sea. Now that I think about it, I never placed the sea in the foreground until I had read Yukio Mishima in school for English literature. What was a compulsory task soon became a source of inspiration. Mishima had the beautiful ability of painting his profound love for the sea through his characters and stories. First during my GCSEs with the text The Sound of Waves, then in IB with the sailor who fell from grace with the sea. The hours spent savoring every word, pages filled with highlights and annotations manifested in my personal life through a personal attraction towards the aesthetic significance of the sea. I saw it for its potential, its serenity, and most importantly, its importance to humans. The sea became a personal source of inspiration. I started understanding it as a mind of complexity. Under its deep currents, its confusing hues of green, gray, blues, it was calm and brutal, spiritual and destructive, innocent and seductive, simultaneously a field for coexistence and exploitation. It was the sea that made me begin thinking secretly about love more than anything else. A love worth dying for, or a love that consumes you. Yukio Mishima, the sailor who fell from grace with the sea. End quote. And the fisherman, lone but complete. There were studded accessories, dainty molds on the bodies, discreet, dissonant, but indispensable once you notice them on the landscape. In Quarry Bay Park, pacing back and forth, you see the hobbyist fishermen perched by the railings with their rods hanging out. Their rods stuck out like piers. Boats would lap that stretch of water like the night strollers that trickled past street lamps. All of this is comforting. In the evenings, people would congregate there. The evening Tai Chi group with their soft, airy movements, families that strolled before returning to their TV screens, runners with their Fitbits attached to their wrists, and with the mountains behind. The thick concrete transformer blocks, the pavement in the parks, and then the harbor below. Water floated below the wrists. Changquan-o and the mainland lay opposite. There was stillness in their act. Sometimes with a bucket by their feet and a radio that also held an extendable rod. They would stay for hours, till the light became a pinpoint twinge in the night sky. My love for the sea, the completeness of it, comes from being around it, not necessarily being in it. And it is the fishermen, with their undying patience or resilient boredom, that best presents this feeling of leisure, of solace, and of inner peace. It is this that embodies it all. For whatever we lose, like a you or a me, 'tis always ourselves we find in the sea. End quote. E. Cummings, Maggie and Millie and Molly and May. So I wrote this piece when I was in my second year at university, and revisiting it is interesting because I guess it's the first point in time really where I've started delving into kind of themes that I constantly explore now, either in my professional work or almost like privately when I think about my identity and what I like and what I don't like. I think back at that time when I wrote this second year, I was clearly quite homesick, as you can tell from my writing. And one of the large things that I was thinking about then was like, I obviously miss Hong Kong. And Hong Kong obviously shaped so much of my identity. But what about Hong Kong, if I had to break it down, did I miss? So I remember like popping up to Newcastle and was like, yeah, I definitely miss the city element, obviously Hong Kong being a big city. And I could feel a bit better sometimes if I went to London. I missed Asia, I missed Chinese culture, and that was definitely something that I could feel better sometimes when like I was like listening to Chinese music, binge watching Chinese movies and TV shows, could feel a little bit better. But another thing that that wasn't replaceable, that I guess could be replaceable in ways, was just the place itself. And a large thing was the sea. Sometimes if I went to like the beach by County Durham, like I would feel a little bit better, but I couldn't. The specific intricacies of the culture, this island culture in Hong Kong, and all of that was something that can't be replaced. And that was what was extremely unique to me. That then, thinking about that, then made me explore a bit more about my specific Hong Kong identity. So, and also in a way why I've always identified more with the diasporic. And it made me think about like my family itself. So a little bit of context, my whole family live in like Hong Kong Island in Sheung Wan, which I think I mentioned in the writing. And the reason for this is my dad's side of the family have always done trading. They would trade like dried fish or medicinal herbs around Southeast Asia. And I guess being around this, like historically, not only meant that, like, I would always go back home and fish was the main protein. There were also like little rites that I had to do and perform growing up, like ancestral rites, things with like Tin Hao, that always stuck with me. That, you know, when you're a kid you don't understand, but are things that you slowly understand in the like growing up. And then little things like, oh, you've got family members in Vietnam, you've got family members in France, you've got like this diasporic thing was also something that then made sense when I examined the sea and that part of history or identity. So this is kind of where it comes to me in a personal level, like understanding my identity and why my identity could be fragmented in ways. But then now in a professional way, being inspired by my private life has given me kind of like a large interest in it professionally as well. So interestingly, when I wrote the line, I think something about like the sea being a place for coexistence but exploitation. As I mentioned, I wrote this in second year. I was writing a research report on Canadian policies in the Arctic and how a lot of it rest on the foundation of it viewing itself as an archipelago. And that made me think a lot about how you vision yourself. And not to be political, I think sometimes like Hong Kong, if it saw itself more as like an archipelago, it would be very... Anyways, this professionally has led me to do a lot of research. I'm also a freelance researcher around the livelihoods of fishermen. my dissertation was on the sustainable livelihoods framework of fishermen in Southeast Asia, criticizing it. And then I'm currently doing research work interviewing fishermen on kind of like, sorry, this has become a bit of a rabble. Anyways, professionally have also explored a lot about kind of water and how that changes narratives, especially in policy making and things like that. So yeah, I find this interesting how it's like a start of time. Yeah, so that was kind of, in ways, this exploration of all of these themes, the main inspiration and motivation of why I wrote this, I believe, at that point, aside from the fact that it was terribly homesick. But yeah. So I don't write professionally. I do it kind of on the side because I just do it naturally. I sometimes post things on @99scrawls and Instagram. So scrawls as in like, but I wouldn't say that's like a main channel. Yeah. I have poems coming out on a magazine called Anthropocene, so you should check that out. But yeah, check out 99scrawls if you'd like. I just post things, and they're mostly quite rambly. If you like rambly things, so you can tell I'm quite a rambly person. But 99scrawls is a vessel for that, and at the moment I only have like 20 something followers, and I kind of want to keep that way, but you can check it out if you like.
Hi, my name is Erica Zhang. I am currently based in Queens, New York, and I am a multidisciplinary artist, educator, and the chef de cuisine at Jelly Root. So Jelly Root is a food-based virtual reality project of mine that really started out as a kind of deep dive into the whole world of Blender and 3D modeling. I really liked this idea of creating my own planet and creating these inhabitants. So it kind of evolved from there, where I wanted to make an elementary encyclopedia for this planet and just learn for myself a little bit more about what types of philosophies would be reflected in different foodways, real or imagined. So I had been kind of playing around with 3D modeling for a while, but like with many people, when the pandemic happened, I just kind of threw myself into this new project. And around that same time, I also started playing Animal Crossing. So there's, a pretty big influence there for me, just this kind of crossover between, virtual reality. And the one thing at that time that was missing in that game for me was really the food. And that's kind of where it all began, where I just wanted to sort of create my own little Animal Crossing like world. Well, by the time this video probably gets out, I will have already exhibited my work, some of my work in Jelly Root at the Q77 art show in Queens. But I'm hoping to, keep pushing on other platforms. And if you are interested to find out, what else I'll be doing in the future, you can always follow my page on Instagram @JellyRoot, or you can also tune in on my website at ezangdesign.com. Thanks for watching.